regime globally. What about Indonesia? How do you see our main interest rate enacted and imposed by our central bank? Because basically, Indonesian central bank still have possibility to cut down its main interest rate at least 25 bips closing this year 2020. How do you see, and what kind of interest rate regime Indonesia are now living in?
So the Bank Indonesia did lowered the BI rate by about 100 basis points so far this year, since January. It's the benchmark rate is at about 4% now. We are of the view that we have really seen the bulk of the rate cut, so we expect a pause for the rest of the year. And why do we expect that? A couple of reasons. I think firstly being that maintaining stability in the financial markets overall is priority. So Rupiah, like we discussed earlier, is on the weakening trend. So that certainly nudges the central bank to maintain favorable rate differentials. So I would think Rupiah stability being key, that would keep them from lowering rates further. Secondly, if you see the transmission, the money market rates have come down to a much greater extent than the benchmark rates have. So in fact, the money market rates are closer to the lower corridor of the policy rate. So despite the central bank not hiking or not cutting for the last two meetings, you've still seen money market rates transmission continue to happen. So that just shows you that you don't really need changes there to really push down the transmission. And the third would be that right now, the focus of the monetary policy is not so much on conventional policy thrust, but on unconventional policy thrust. They are engaging in more debt management. They are engaging in making sure that this year's borrowing program goes through well and the borrowing costs remain in control. So with focus being on that side, we would think that the conventional policy rate will remain on status quo for the rest of the year.
To close up, given the uncertainty of the effective vaccine, on your view, Radhika Rao, how do you see and how do you foresee the economic development closing 2020 as well as the years ahead?
For Indonesia in particular, we expect a 1% contraction this year, and we do expect that the base effects of this year will prop 2021 growth. Encouragingly, the government has bought fiscal space by raising its statutory limit, or rather relaxing its statutory limit for the next couple of years. That means there could be more fiscal stimulus that could be put into place. The central bank remains focused on ensuring that the policy rate, borrowing costs remain low and transmission happens. At the same time, banks have been also asked to go through a restructuring exercise. So given a few more years of window to make sure that households as well as businesses can recover from this economic shock. So all in all, I would think that at this point, pandemic management will be very important. Growth will certainly be it's going to be a balancing act, but certainly growth impact is going to be there, and you're going to see a negative growth rate this year. But given the fiscal space, given the monetary space, given that the authorities have been on top of the policy curve, we would think that by 2021, 2022, economy can expect to go back towards its pre-COVID growth curve.